So I think I've explained this in the past, but just in case this is our audience members, one of our audience members' first time watching the show, basically the principle is that uh, if why we should be in miners instead of Bitcoin is because I think miners represent a leverage play on the Bitcoin space. And where does the kind of leverage come from? Well, it all comes from the fact that the electricity cost to mine Bitcoin doesn't go up as fast as the Bitcoin price itself during a bull cycle. So, for example, if you're a Bitcoin miner and you're able to mine Bitcoin for $50,000 per Bitcoin, let's just say, right? And Bitcoin's price is $60,000 per Bitcoin right now. So you're making $10,000 per Bitcoin because like you're the only one who can effectively buy Bitcoin at $50,000, right? Because if you're not a miner, then you go to the open market, you're going to have to pay that $60,000 market price. But if you're a miner, then you're paying that $50,000 sticker price for the electricity, and then you get Bitcoin in return. And also, this effect is just exacerbated when the Bitcoin price goes up. Like if it goes on a bull run, let's say if it hits 100K and your electricity costs, it'll go up a little bit just because more miners plug in and there's more competition and stuff. So you're gonna use a little bit more electricity in general. So maybe your electricity cost goes up to $60,000 per Bitcoin now, but Bitcoin is 100K, so you're making $40,000 per Bitcoin now when you're a Bitcoin miner. So the point is the electricity cost that you're going to spend to mine Bitcoin goes up slower than the Bitcoin price itself. So that's kind of where the leverage comes from. And that's why, for me at least, I see Bitcoin miners as such a great opportunity to kind of play the Bitcoin bull market and potentially get even greater gains compared to holding Bitcoin itself. Of course, there's nothing wrong with holding Bitcoin itself. I also hold actual Bitcoin itself, right, unleveraged. But I just think that Bitcoin miners is it exploits that principle of that like Bitcoin bull run, the 4-year cycle, and you can potentially gain more money by being in Bitcoin mining stocks as opposed to Bitcoin itself. So that's just kind of a brief, 2-minute, 3-minute explainer of how this stuff works. So yeah, that's all for that story. If you guys don't have anything else to add.
I also have something to jump in here regarding the miners value proposition. And I think one area that you didn't really touch on is the fact that they can periodically decouple with the price of Bitcoin when there is at times where the miners are down more than they should be compared to Bitcoin. So you can kind of get and at the same time, there are times when they're up more than Bitcoin. So you can kind of take advantage of that difference in price where there's maybe more fear in the mining space, but you don't have necessarily as much to fear because Bitcoin's price is high. So Bitcoin's high, the miners will still make money, right? And so there's kind of a little bit of space there where you can actually swing trade these Bitcoin miners surprisingly well as well. Not that I personally do that a whole ton, but there's been multiple instances where the Bitcoin miners have gone down significantly more than than Bitcoin itself. So you could get them at a cheaper price, and then when they realign with the Bitcoin price, then you're able to gain a much greater percentage gain because of that kind of price inefficiency is really what it comes down to. So that's one thing with how we're kind of like using the miners as a investment strategy. Not financial advice, obviously, but it's kind of like that method that means that there will be times when you're looking at the Bitcoin price and going, why are the miners down? And then other times where the miners are skyrocketing, yet Bitcoin has done basically nothing. And part of that is because because they're actually companies, people tend to be more forward looking. So when Bitcoin starts running, the miners tend to start running more, because people are expecting the returns at a later date than right now. So that's kind of like another area where there's kind of a multiple that can be added to it. So it's definitely a very volatile asset, even more volatile than I would say Bitcoin is, but they have a lot of potential. And I think another area just on that front is that there have been some times where, since a lot of these mining companies have Bitcoin huddles, where the market has valued the companies at basically zero or less than zero of their market cap minus the huddle. I remember in December 2022, Hut 8, the mining company, this market cap was lower than the total huddle position, which meant that functionally speaking, their company was being valued at $0 and their huddle was being valued at like minus 30 million because it was under that. So there's been instances where there's been a big price inefficiency on that front, which make them a more compelling option at times.
Maybe it's a little bit less so with ETFs now being a thing in both Canada and the United States. But, if you wanted to gain exposure to Bitcoin back in the day, there was really not a way to do it when, like, if ETFs weren't a thing, besides getting into the miners, right? So I think that might be another factor. And even with the ETFs now, like, does that invalidate that part? I don't think so. Maybe a little bit, but I still think that there's room in the market for these, like, Bitcoin proxy plays. And with regards to the Bitcoin HODL, I think that's maybe something that is also interesting, where if you're a Bitcoin miner, you build up a large HODL bag, and the management of the Bitcoin company, if they're smart, maybe they'll, I know they say not to try and time the market, not to try and time Bitcoin, but with the 4-year cycle being such a, standout thing that has happened throughout history, maybe if you're a Bitcoin miner that has a lot of HODL, maybe you would decide to dump a bunch of Bitcoin when the cycle is supposedly going to peak, and then all of a sudden that could give you an extra boost in terms of your market cap when the time comes, right? So at least you have that option with you. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things that Bitcoin miners can do that an ETF cannot, and that's what kind of makes me interested in this space, at least. And I feel like, that scene from Gladiator, you're in the arena, right? Like that's what it feels like to be in Bitcoin miners every day. But that's just kind of the life that I signed up for. So anyways, if no one else has anything else to add, why don't we move on to the next part of the story? Yeah.
Just quickly. Well, I was just gonna say, like, also it's just a tax-free option if you haven't maxed out any of your tax-free accounts yet. So I mean, instead of buying Bitcoin and then you get taxed off that, if you haven't maxed your accounts out yet, you can use miners as a play. Arguably like ETFs too as well, but heck, why not go the miner route too? So okay, we can move on.